What's up, guys? I'm BTC. Got a bunch of news for you today, including the possibility of a new underwater map. First, you can get Overwatch League tokens again. If you remember, you used to be able to connect your Battle.net account to Twitch, and then watching the games would give you tokens, but they got rid of that when they moved to YouTube. So now, in order to get those tokens, you can watch the games through the official website, the Overwatch League website, or through the official Overwatch League app. Now, you might be wondering, well, wait a minute, didn't they make that big deal with YouTube? So what's the point of all that? Well, if you watch it on the official website or the app, you're still technically watching it through YouTube, just indirectly, because that's where the videos come from. So if you want to get those tokens in order to get the All-Star skins or some of the other special stuff they have without actually paying for the tokens, you can get those tokens now by watching it through the official website or the app. Next up, ever since the release of Echo, people have been wondering how her ultimate is going to work in some of these special event modes when you're not playing against enemy players. Unfortunately, we don't have access to the archive events right now, but Junkenstein is available, and I went and tested it, and as it turns out, you can use the ultimate on the special boss hero. So Junkenstein, Symmetra, Mercy, Reaper, Roadhog, all the ones that are in that event, you can activate your ultimate on them as Echo. Now, how is this going to work in the archives missions when you don't actually even have those things to target? I don't know, but as soon as the archives events are available, I'll go and test it out. Next up, are we going to get a new underwater map for Overwatch, and will it be soon? We know that we're not getting any new heroes before Overwatch 2, but Jeff Kaplan did hint at the possibility of a new map getting released before then. And why is this important? Well, because in the brand new anniversary event, with all the press material that they put out for the event when it gets announced, they showed off all of these images that you've been seeing on the screen with the different new character skins. And then we also have this one right here, which looks very interesting. At first, I didn't pay much attention to it, but then a lot of people started kind of talking about the idea that it could be a new underwater map, because it very clearly looks like Hammond is underwater. So I want to break down this image, and it might not be exactly what you think. Some of you might remember this image right here, which was released at one of the BlizzCons, and it shows off a bunch of the possible map ideas that were being thrown around when Blizzard was first developing Overwatch. And one of them, right here, is an underwater map. Now, this doesn't mean that you would actually be, moving around in the water itself. It would probably be more like a biosphere kind of deal, similar to what you have on the Horizon Lunar Colony, right? You're not on the moon most of the time, you're inside the actual facility, and that would probably be the same thing that you have in an underwater map. You would be inside the facility. Maybe you could go out at some point in time, but most of it's going to be in the biosphere type thing itself. Let's take a closer look at this image. We can kind of dismiss Hammond because that's just the character skin that's getting shown off. And if we look at the ground itself, it looks like it's made of sand, which could possibly be taken from the Anubis map, or possibly one of the Lucio Ball maps, because those have beaches. So they could have just taken that texture and used that as the ground from either of those maps. Then on the bottom right, we have the rubber ducky thing, which is very obviously from Junkrat's tire with his beach rat skin. This is one of his legendaries, and you can very clearly see that this is the tire. Although I do think it's kind of funny because this is supposed to be like a floaty device, but it's sitting on the bottom of the ocean. I mean, I guess if it actually was the tire, then it would sink. But if it was a proper floaty device, it wouldn't be sitting on the ocean floor, right? Nothing makes sense, okay? Let's just continue. And then the next thing, which is probably the most noticeable, is the statue head on the right. When I first saw this, I thought maybe it was just Pharah with no textures, like they had put in a giant no-texture version of Pharah's character skin in there and just kind of like turned it. But then I remembered that there are statues on the Temple of Anubis map, and I remember this because I just checked to see about the sand for the floor, so that is very clearly the statues from the Temple of Anubis map. And right next to it, we also have the very important bucket, which can be found on Eichenwald and probably a bunch of other maps as well. On the left-hand side, there are a couple of barrels, which can be found on the Hollywood map. They're in a bunch of different locations. You can also find these on Blizzard World and possibly some other maps as well. But what about the stuff in the back? Is that some sort of that biosphere? Is it something else that could possibly be hinting at the new map? Well, as it turns out, not so much. When I first saw this, I thought it was possibly going to be the Mecha Base from the Busan map, because if you look from this angle, you can see that it kind of follows the same curvature as the Mecha Base. But then I looked at the lights, and I wasn't really sure what it was. I thought maybe it was kind of those launch kind of symbol things that you can see in the air for the Mecha Base, and maybe they had been turned or manipulated somehow, but it didn't really quite fit. And then as I was going through the different maps, I noticed on the splash screen for Ville Skya, you can actually see the airship in the background. And there's actually 2 of these in the map. So you've got this one right here, and then you also have another one which is way off in this direction over here. And if we go really close to them, and then you can take a better look at it, you can see that it does have the same lighting pattern as we can see in this image. And the thing that really kind of locks it into place is if you look on this image on the left-hand side, you can see several kind of blue circles. And when I first saw this, I didn't really know what it was. But when you compare it to the airship, it is very clearly the hoverjet part of the airship, and they all match up. So this thing in the background, it's not the Mecha Base, it's actually one of these airships kind of turned at an angle. And then one final thing, which is on the right of the ship and above the head of the statue, are these kind of hilly-looking areas on the right-hand side. And from what I can tell, those are the mountains that are in the far-off distance on the Nepal map. So not only is this entire thing not underwater, but it's actually several thousand feet above sea level. So unfortunately, it is not looking like this is going to be the design of a new map at all. It is probably one of the artists who decided to simply create this environment using objects from different parts of the game in order to make it. So as far as the underwater map goes, maybe it could happen at some point, but this certainly does not appear to be it. And just a quick reminder, make sure you grab some of your Overwatch League tokens. You don't even necessarily have to watch the games. You can just kind of save up the tokens now for when they start releasing stuff that you might want to get in the future. So what do you guys think about a possible underwater map in the future? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell to get notified. You can get some cool gear, join my Discord server, or follow me on social media with the links down in the description below. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters, and remember, always blame the controller because it's never your fault.